Yo, it's your boy DT. The final statement with DT, October the 20th. Appreciate everybody tuning in to watch my show. If you didn't get a chance to catch my show from last week, it's definitely on my YouTube page. We talked about love, relationship, mental health, how to manage, navigate through a toxic relationship. My guest was very informative. Loved it, enjoyed it every bit. We got another part two of this show coming up in November, so definitely keep a lookout for that. This week, I had opportunity 2 months ago. I know 2 months ago to sit down with one of the top. Actually, I think it was 3 months ago almost. Yeah, it was 3 months. It was over 3 months ago. I got to sit down with one of the top NBA officials. The reason why it's been 3 months because I had to wait for the NBA to approve the interview. Well, he's been doing it for 30 plus years. He's been in the league longer than any other NBA referee right now. Tommy Washington. They call him Tom Washington. In the interview that you're going to see shortly, we talked about his journey, how he started refereeing, playing basketball at a young age. We talked about his first year as a referee, his first experience as a referee, which is very interesting because his first first NBA game he was matched up against the Atlanta Hawks and the Detroit Pistons, and a fight broke out. So it was a great. I love to sit down with him. So in this part one is multiple parts. So this part one interview, we get to learn a little bit more about Tom Washington, his struggles, how he balanced it, and everything. It was a very informative interview. I enjoyed it. I loved it, and I hope you enjoy it too. So right after this break, you go get to catch the full first part of the interview. Then I'll be back at the end of the show. This is your boy, the final statement with DT. Thank you for tuning in.
On the border, the choice is simple. Kamala Harris supports increasing the number of Border Patrol agents. Donald Trump blocked a bill to increase the number of Border Patrol agents. Kamala Harris supports investing in new technology to block fentanyl from entering the country. Donald Trump blocked funding for technology to block fentanyl from entering the country. Kamala Harris supports spending more money to stop human traffickers. Donald Trump blocked money to stop human traffickers. Kamala Harris prosecuted transnational gang members and got them sentenced to prison. Trump is trying to avoid being sentenced to prison. There's two choices in this election: the one who will fix our broken immigration system, and the one who's trying to stop her.
I have a special guest on my show, and I've been looking forward to this guest for an extremely long time. I got to know this young man because he is a young man. He's still young. Got to know him over on a course of a year and love talking to him. And most of y'all, if you see him now, some of y'all may know him, some of y'all may not. Well, he's been a professional NBA official for the 32, 33 years now. He done rep all your favorite players, my favorite players, from Michael Jordan to LeBron James to Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Giannis, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant. I mean, the list go on and on. He been on the court with them. He done call fouls on them. He done send them to the free throw line. So he done did everything. So he done did everything. He done got yelled at for that because we know the refs get it all the time. I want to welcome to my show Tom Washington, man. Welcome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the invite. It's good. Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it. So I'm gonna do a little rundown because I was looking at your biography a little bit, and I got it. And I'm gonna use my phone a lot because I got a lot of questions I'm gonna ask him. You've been refereeing for 33 years.
Yes, sir.
You have officiated over 1,800 games. You repped over 180 playoff games, including 4 NBA final games. So some of your notable games, I noticed that you 2021, you was the NBA All-Star game in Atlanta, Georgia, under HBCUs.
Yeah.
Okay, and then
So special.
Devin, we're gonna jump into that too. Talk a little bit about that. 2004, you was the All-Star game in Los Angeles. 2017, NBA All-Star game in New Orleans. Game 4 of the 2008 Finals, Boston Celtics versus Los Angeles Lakers. Great game right there as well. Game 2 of 2012, the finals was the first all-black 3-person crew. The first, really?
That very first.
In
the history of the NBA. That was the very first.
I did not know that. I did not know. When I read that, I was shocked. Then, so I know you had 2 years in Continental Basketball Association. What's that?
Yeah, the CBA, which is what everybody knows as the G League now.
Okay, G League.
right?
Okay.
CBA is the was the founder of all that.
Okay.
So it went from the CBA to the D League to the G League.
Okay.
Right?
And then you did 1 year of collegiate level D2 and D3 basketball.
That is correct. Yeah.
And you had 5 years at high school level in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let's talk about some of your community involvement. You volunteer with the Big Bros, Big Sister program.
Yeah. The Amici program. Yeah, I did that for years in Philly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you volunteer work with Children's Choice. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So my volunteer work is more or less based on. I went to school. I went to Norfolk State University.
Okay.
Shout out to the HBCUs, right?
Okay.
And I was a sociology major,
Okay.
right? So that's where I started. Left the Tidewater area, came back to Philly, and that's where I started all my social work, volunteer work, with everything. So I did a lot of work with. I started out with kids, so I was doing youth groups and everything else. I worked with the aging. I worked in the public welfare department as well. So I had touched like a lot of different avenues of social work, a lot of different groups, and was loving that, right? And that's what I was doing before I started refereeing.
Okay.
So when I came back to Philly, that was my job.
Right.
That's what I did, and I loved doing it. Can't say I made a lot of money doing it, but I had a lot of personal growth and personal excitement about all the people that I was really helping.
Right.
Right? And so I was still playing ball, a little bit, playing a lot of ball, really, just playing everywhere in Philly. Played in the Sunny Hill League, all those things. So I was playing a lot, and then I just really how I jump started into refereeing was I was playing so much that I said, "Listen, you're playing too much ball. You gotta slow down." Right.
Right.
So I didn't think I was going to have a career in the NBA. You know, we all, as every young kid wants to, we want to have that. I
Right.
said, but realistically, I didn't think that was really going to happen. So it's like, listen, you need to do something else. So when I started out, I was working at this church and working with their kids on the weekend. What he had was a play group that basically it was an open gym on Saturdays.
Hmm.
Right. So he had all these kids come up, open gym, had somebody supervising. And then he came to me knowing that I played and whatever. And he asked me and said, listen, do me a favor. Got all these kids in here and it's just open gym. Can you just organize them for me? And let's get them into games and whatever and help teach them some basketball. I said, not a problem. Sure, I'll do that. Right.
Hmm.
So that was the very first time that I ever attempted to referee.
Okay.
So these kids were 8 to 12, something like that. Really didn't know, trying to teach them basketball, breaking them up into groups so they can have teams and whatever. And me running up and down, blowing the whistle, telling them what they can do and what they can't do. Right. And so I started out doing that. And what I really realized is it's like, you know what? Let me be responsible. Let me teach these kids the rules of the game.
Right.
Right. Not just teach them how to play basketball. Right. And so the epiphany for me was when I got a rule book, I looked at the rule book and I'm like, I don't even know these rules.
Right.
I didn't know any of these rules. I said, oh, wow, this is amazing. I said, and that's how I got started. And so they had a officials group that was actually meeting in that same church. So I joined that association. And that's what jump started me on the road down to referee.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did see that you was born in Arkansas,
Yes, I was.
but do you remember anything about Arkansas?
No, I don't remember anything about Arkansas. I was at Fort Smith, Arkansas. My dad was in the army at the time, stationed down there, and that's where I was born. Me and my sister were born there, and I don't know how quickly he left, but I have no recollection of that. He left and went to Philly. His mom and dad are from Carlisle, PA, which is about 90 miles outside of Philly. So he went to Philly, and that's what I do remember all my Philly experiences, but not Fort Smith. But I have one. Carl Lane is on the staff. He's still down in Arkansas, and we always call each other homeboys because he knows that I was born there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So you moved to Philly.
Yeah.
You wanted to. So basketball was your sport that you played growing up.
No, it was not.
What was it?
Yeah. I started out playing baseball.
Okay.
Right. Played a little bit of football. I didn't play a lot. but I was more of a baseball player. I
Okay.
came to basketball real late. Matter of fact, in high school, I was on the gymnastics team,
Okay.
right? So I went to Central, which was a higher education school. So they were very academic, right? And I got chosen out of my middle school at the time to go there. My dad made sure it's like, nope, you're going. They chose you, you're going. And so at the time, they didn't have in the ninth, when I went there, it was in the ninth grade, and they didn't have a basketball team that you could play on. You
Mhm.
could play JV at the time, because you got to remember, I'm a little older, right? So it's not like it is now. You can do that. So, but what they did have is the gymnastics team that like ninth graders, you can come and train and work out. And so I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to join this. Right.
Mhm.
And so I did it, and I got excited about learning new tricks and how to work on the parallel bars and doing floor exercise and the high bar and all that. And I stuck with it. And it morphed into, for 3 years, I was on a team, and we won the city championship while I was on that team. And so I never went out for basketball in high school because I was already on the championship team.
Okay.
Only reason. Yep.
Okay. So when did you actually attempt to try for the team at the school? Did you actually try for the varsity team at high
I
school?
went out for the JV team once, but it was conflicting with gymnastics.
Okay.
So I left.
Okay.
Right. And I was questioned. The coach asked, "Listen, why are you not coming back out?" I said, "Well, I'm already on the varsity gymnastics team. I can't play both sports at the same time."
Right.
Right. It's not like you play football and then baseball. They're two different seasons.
Right.
So I just gave it up.
Okay.
Our school at the time, Central High School, was not the basketball powerhouse, to say the least.
Well, see, that would been the best time to play with him because you would got all the playing time.
Would have got all the things.
You got-
That is true.
I tell a lot of athletes now who be at school, they be at power school, and they on the bench and they're a good player. I say
Yeah.
you need to probably transfer to a school that ain't so
Yeah.
big, because then you'll get that power, you'll get that attention, you'll be able to play at a high level.
I would. I
But
would have.
the only issue behind it is, do your coach know college coaches? Because if you go in there and they don't know no one,
Yeah.
and they kind of put you in a bad situation. You having fun, you playing, but no college coaches knowing you because your coach is just doing this because he's a home ec teacher, and they ask him, can he come coach the team? He's like, yeah,
Right.
sure, I'll come do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you gradually you got older, like I said, I know you did the you said you started refereeing the kids. Was this during college, your college years, or was this after your college years?
No, it was after my college years. It was after I left Norfolk State, got my degree, came back, playing ball, was playing some of the semi-pro. I was with some semi-pro teams and stuff like that. So I was playing there.
Okay.
And I just kind of figured out that it just didn't seem like that avenue was really working out. Right.
Right.
So I mean, I played well, and it's good. It's like, but I wasn't at the level that I needed to be noticed and seen to be a pro.
Okay.
Right. And so I give myself some credit because you know how basketball players are. And it's like you never give up. You always think that you can. And I
Right.
said it's not that I didn't think I could. I just thought that avenue really wasn't coming to fruition. So it's like, all right, let me try to find some other way to
Right.
stay attached to basketball.
Okay.
And refereeing what happened to be it. Right. And so when I look back on it 33 years later,
Right.
I said, wow, I got a career that's like 2 or 3 times longer than I would have had if I had had a chance to play in the NBA.
Right.
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 I said, there's no way I would have played 33 years.
No,
in the NBA.
no,
Doesn't happen.
that doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. Even though I know LeBron is on year 22 coming up,
Yeah, exactly.
it's not
Right,
going to
it
happen.
doesn't happen.
If he get to 33 years, he got Jordan.
He got him.
He got as much as I love Jordan, he got Jordan. He
Yeah,
made
we
30.
got to bow down to him.
Yeah, but I don't see that happening. So you start reffing. When did you get the entry? When did the net get to you that you want to cross over and try to do it at the professional level?
So here's the quick and short story about that. So I was helping one of my friends who was organizing youth basketball at the time.
Okay.
So I used to work his leagues. I used to assign his leagues to get the referees to do whatever. And it happened to be one day that I actually was not working. Right.
Mhm.
So he had an all-star game down at Gustine Lake, which is a rec center in Philly. And for whatever reason, his officials didn't show up. The guy that he used at the time, and it wasn't me, his officials didn't show up. So he called me. He said, "Listen, I'm stuck." I said, "Listen, I'm trying to put on this all-star game. Kids, whatever, and everybody's here, but there's no officials here, right?" I said, "Can you help me out? If you're not busy, can you help me out?" I said, "Sure, not a problem." I said, it was a friend of mine. I said, "Listen, I'm not doing anything. It was a Saturday." I said, "I wasn't busy." I said, "I'm only about 15, 20 minutes away." I said, "All right, I'll come down and help you out." I said, "I'll make a call and see if I can grab somebody to come with me." I said, "It's an all-star game. It's not that big of a deal."
Hmm.
I said, "But we want to be fair to the kids."
Right.
So I came down and did that. And unbeknownst to me, at the time I was working this game, there was a gentleman in the stands who was with the Philly Pro Am,
Okay.
right? So I'm just working, and I'm like, no, no, I'm just working the game like I always work, trying to do my best and everything else. And he came and approached me afterwards.
Okay.
It was the first gentleman that ever, Walt was his name, that ever asked me about pro refereeing. That was the
Okay.
first time it came across my mind.
Okay.
So he said, like, "You ever think about pro refereeing?" And it's like, actually, I had not. I told him, "Yeah, I did."
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of lied, but it's like, all right, well, if that's the case, I said, "Listen, I'm gonna put you in the Philly Pro Am, and we're gonna teach you pro refereeing and see how you make out."
Okay.
Right. So I spent that first year with them doing the Philly Pro Am. So I was working in Philly, Camden, Newark, New York, all those pro-ams. That first year, I was able to be selected to go to the National Pro-Am tournament, which was in LA at the time, right after the first year. So I went to that. And at that National Pro-Am, that's where the NBA scouts usually go at that time. This is back in the 90s.
Hmm.
That's where they went to try to find officials,
Okay.
right? So it's different now. Now they look everywhere. So you can do it. You can have a college schedule. They're gonna go scout you. Right?
Hmm.
Back then, they wanted to see guys that actually work the pro mechanics to see whether or not we can teach them how to really work, see if they're going to be available for the league.
Right.
So at that National Pro Am in LA, gentleman that saw me, Dr. Aaron Wade, who was the man right under Daryl Garrison. He was in charge of scouting and everything else. Saw me work a game. And he came back to the director of the National Pro Am. He told him, he said, "Look, I need this guy, that guy." And I was one of the guys. He said, "I need you to put them on semifinal games because I need to see them again. I want to see whether or not they can really handle it, whether they can work." And he has interest in it. So they put me on the game and worked out fine. And then the next thing I know, 10 days later, they sent me a letter and invited me out for a tryout back in LA to be a part of the NBA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So before that, you say, did you ref at a high school level? Because it was it. Did you like a high school?
I did high school back in Philly. So I
Okay.
did the Philly Public Leagues, the Philly Catholic Leagues. I didn't do the suburban ball. But I
Hmm.
did that. I did boys and girls. I
Okay.
did both sides. Yeah.
And what did you enjoy about that?
I just enjoyed being back and being in touch with basketball, right?
Okay.
So, and the beauty of it was because I was actually learning
Hmm.
is I was learning more and more every time. So I just felt like I was getting better, right?
Okay.
Now, whether they thought I was or not, don't know. But I was able, as I was working high school, uh, I was getting better games,
Right.
right? I got to the playoffs on both sides, right?
Okay.
Even to the point that when, so it's a funny story. So the assigner for the girls and the assigner for the boys, Bernice and John Koskegan, respectfully, when the finals came, they're like, "Well, I need him because I want him to work our finals,"
Hmm.
right? And so it was it speaks to your ego a little bit because they both wanted me for it, and it's like,
Right.
well, look, you can't work both of them,
Right.
right? So one or the other. So actually, the boys won out over Bernice at the time, and it's like, well, no, I actually need to have him, so he's not going to be able to work yours because we're both playing on the same day, and he's not going to work two games on the same day.
Right.
So I'm going to take. So but that was great, but that was a testament to the work that I put in. Didn't know where it was going to go, but I put the work in, and this is what happened at the end, right? Which was great.
So one question. So the boys' money looked better than the girls.
It did. Back then, it absolutely did back then. Yes, it did.
When did Tom know this is my career? When did you get that you in your head? You like, because you know how you as a player, you know when you take back, like as a you've asked a lot of youth on my show, is when did you know that basketball was your sport or football or baseball? When you knew this is what you're gonna do. When did you know referee
Was going to be what I was going to do. I think that pro-am, I'm working that first year, learning the pro-am. And when they said, look, you're selected, we're going to take you to the national. I think that was when I was like, okay, all right, so I might have something here. So I'm like, no, I got to give it a shot. And I remember my close friend, college roommate at the time, and I tried to pull him in. So I pulled him in the refereeing period. So it's like, come on, man, let's go referee. We can work on the weekends, do the rec leagues, get you in the high school, whatever. You always want somebody to go with you at the time. And he did.
right?
But then when I started to go to the semi-pro and the pro side, he was reluctant. He's like, nah, you're never going to make it. Right. And it was shocking to me that he said that. I was like, and this is my best friend. It's
Right.
like, no, man, that'd be a waste of time, man. I'm just going to stay here and do this. I don't know if you should do that. You're going to be wasting your time. I said, you know what, man, I'm gonna go try it, right? And then we're gonna see. I said the worst that could happen is if I don't make it, I'm gonna come back,
Right.
still work when I'm still working,
Right.
right? And so, and we're still good friends now, right?
Mhm.
And I quietly and in a way, I never told him how disappointed I was that he didn't have to come with me, but you weren't in full support of what I was going to do.
Now he knows.
Now he knows.
He
Right.
knows now.
But you're also the driving force that got me there.
Right. Right.
So it was then that I was like, no, actually, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best me I can be,
hmm
and then we'll find out what that's going to get.
Okay.
That's all I did.
Do you think he regret this now? Like looking back on like what
You
you
know what? I
like
I
him?
don't think he I don't think he does because he's in full support of me. Like we
Don't
still,
regret that because wasn't he trying to be a ref too?
he was, and he was a rep,
Okay.
right? But he didn't go this route.
Okay.
And you know what? Part of it might have been at the time, his family was more established than mine.
Okay.
That it's like, well, if you start doing that, then you're going to start traveling. You're going to be away from your family. And we both worked in social work. We worked at the same office at
Okay.
the time too. So we were close in school, and then we ended up being. Um, he started out first, and then we ended up being in the same office doing social work in Philly,
hmm
right? So we were that, and that was my running mate. That was my hoop mate at the
Okay.
time, right? So it was like all I had to do is look. If I ain't had a shot, he had it,
Right.
right? And I could get it to him, and he would nail it, right? So we were that close. But I don't think he really truly regrets it.
hmm
Because I really don't think he had in his heart the desire
Okay.
to do all that,
Do it.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
One question right you when y'all play one on one, who won?
Oh, I always won.
You always won. So yeah, he telling you he's always won now.
He always won. He's always won. He could shoot. Now, if we sat there and shot 20 shots from behind the 3-point line, who would win? I said, he might be able to beat me by one.
Right. Okay. Okay. Cool. So when did you move from Philly to Atlanta?
Atlanta, 2005.
Okay, so I'm jumping so far here. Okay, so when did you do you remember your first NBA game you officiated?
Yeah. The first game I officiated, it was my first exhibition game.
Okay.
Was Atlanta at Houston. In
Mhm.
Houston.
Okay.
Dominique in Atlanta. Hakeem in Houston. And what I remember most about that, other
First,
than
let me ask you a question. Were you nervous?
yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I was nervous, anxious,
Okay.
probably more so than anything else. It's like, all right, here we go, right? And I think Dominique and Hakeem, unlike today, usually the stars of both teams came to the captain meeting
hmm
because we're the guys,
hmm
right? So they came to the captain meeting, and I always remember this: is when he came to the captain meeting, Dominique put his arm around my shoulder. He said, "Just got here, huh?" Like, yeah. I said, "Don't worry about it. You're gonna be all right." I said, "Just relax. We're gonna have fun." And I was good then. King said the same thing, right? Basically, welcome, right? So they both welcome me, and that was huge, right? So this is now the first time I'm on stage with, man, I know these guys, right? I've been watching them play the last couple of years, but now I get to officiate them, and they put me as so at ease then that it took, like you said, that nervousness took it down,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, all right, let's get ready. We got to go to work, right?
Right.
Everything you train, you got to start doing, right? Now, the next thing that happened after the ball went up, it's like, whoa, this is fast,
Right.
right? I said, oh, we got to get adjusted to this speed. I said, because these guys are really good. They're going very quick, right? So that was the first game. And then the first game after I quote unquote got the phone call, because I worked that year, that exhibition year, and then I got hired. And the first game I actually worked where I was quote unquote officially hired
Mm-hmm.
was now Atlanta at Detroit.
Okay.
Uh, we had Isiah and Kevin Willis.
Mm-hmm.
What I remember most about that, those two got in a fight. I was in the middle of it trying to break it up.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about that real quick.
Now, I have
Yep.
no idea why the fight. I can't remember why the fight actually started,
Right.
but all I can tell you is
What was going through your mind at that time? First game, your first official game, and a fight.
a fight started. Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing: Darryl Garrison was the boss at the time, so I was working with Darryl Garrison and Ronnie Nunn, right? So the first thing was, well, I'm at ease. I'm with the boss. I
Mhm.
said, I just need to hold up my end of the table. I'll be okay, right? The boss is going to take care of anything get out of hand. The boss is going to take care of that,
Right.
right? So that put me at ease, so to speak. Um, Now I have no idea why or how they got started. All I know is Isiah took off, went after Kevin Willis for some reason.
Okay.
Right? And all I remember after that is I was in the middle of it, trying to break them up,
Right.
trying to get up. And so to this day, my wife always teases me is that if there's a fight on the court, I already know you're going to be in the middle of it. And I tell her, I said, well, I grew up in Philly, so every time I worked, the rec games and so forth, we were in places where you really couldn't have a fight start,
Right.
right? If it started, you got to stop it right away, because if you don't stop it right away, it's going to be a real bad situation.
Yeah.
So I've always been used to, if something starts, get in, break it up, and let's get calm on the floor as quickly as possible. And so it just followed me to the NBA that if there's a confrontation, it's like show up, get there. It's like, look, I know I'm not strong enough and big enough to really tear somebody away from somebody, but you try to get the shirt in there so they see that we're here, right?
Right.
And so hopefully they respect that enough to like, all right, this, that, and the other. And then, nobody really wants to fight, right? So
Right.
let me show up so they have an excuse not to fight. It's like, all
Well,
right.
I ain't gonna say Ben Lambert wanted to fight now.
Well, and then you're talking about a different era, right? So that's that 90s era, right?
Yeah.
So the 90s era is the era when and I don't know if people now may not know that. I said what we call flagrant fouls now didn't exist
Right.
in the 90s.
Right.
They were just hard fouls.
Right.
And what people did after a hard foul is just got up off the floor,
Right.
right? Now you may be thinking about getting him on the other end. I said, but there wasn't any, oh, we're gonna throw you out. They're like, no, it's just a hard foul. Let's just keep playing.
Right.
So of course that is all changed a little bit. It's the maturation process, so to speak, right? You can't have teams fighting all the time. You got to try to curtail this fighting, these hard fouls. It's like you got to put a limit to it. So that's how it all started. But you had to put a stop to it.
Jumping back to that game, your first game in that fight, what was your emotion like? How did you feel after your first official game, witnessing a fight between two huge stars in the NBA? Not expecting to see that happen, not in your first game.
I did not expect that.
So, what was your emotion like after that? What was your thought process like?
Well, it was. I think the first thing that I started thinking about was, okay, is it our fault that this happened?
Mm-hmm.
What did we miss that caused this to happen? Right. And the beauty of it was I was with Daryl Garrison at the time, so we were able to talk out things that can happen. And then when we went back to watch the video and everything, and we're just like, okay, let's see if there was a tipping point at some point that this caused this. I don't remember what we found at the time, but he taught me that this is how you want to go back and look at things. But he also told me this. He said, just because there's a confrontation on the floor doesn't mean that you missed something. Sometimes players go after players because they just want to do it,
Right.
right? I said, but what you always want to do is go through your video to make sure that you didn't contribute to this, right? If you find that, then you go there, you look at it, you try to correct it going forward. And don't stay in the past. You get to the next play in your next game, right?
Right.
And then if you have something where you can't find anything, just chalk it up to it's like, listen, I don't know why they went at each other, but they did. There's nothing that we can do about it.
Right. Right. After your first year, what was one of the hardest things to adjust to ref and stars? Because like you came from mostly doing high school, some collegiate,
Yeah,
CBA. What was the hardest part adjusting to that?
Well, let me say this because it's not what you really asked me, but the hardest part
Okay.
to the NBA life
Uh-huh.
was the travel.
Okay.
That was the hardest thing to adjust to, was because people sometimes admire the fact that we travel all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but it's not vacation travel, right? We're usually in and out of a city 2 days at the most, and you're basically living out of a suitcase. You get there the night before the game, the next day, and then the next day you're moving on. So it's constant travel. So you have to adjust to that, right?
Right.
And so that was the biggest thing. Now, the to answer your question about as far as being on the floor on a nightly basis with stars in different cities at different times and different levels of teams and so forth, it is. I think what the big adjustment for me was, if you come prepared to do the job that you're supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
then it really doesn't matter who's wearing the jersey,
Right.
right? So if we can do that, and that's what you're always trying to work for, it's like, look, I'm aware. Let's be honest. We're aware of who the star is on each team. We're aware of that, right? So there's a lot of things that we're aware of. Sometimes Joe fans sometimes thinks that, okay, you know that, so that's why you did that. I said, no, that's not why I did that. I said, I'm aware that LeBron's playing on LA. I
Mhm.
said, it would be remissful of me to not know that. I said, he's on the team.
Right.
Why would I not know that? Right. And why would I not know what he can and can't do? I said, but you got to understand, I can know these things, but I never react unless something happens.
Right.
Right. So we're not making up things. So I used to get this all the time with with my friends when I went back and when I was in Philly
Mm-hmm.
with Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Right. He said, y'all never call fouls on Michael Jordan. That's what he told me. He said, you never call fouls on Michael Jordan. I said, that's not true. He's like, yeah, but he rarely da 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 da. And he's like, I said, you do know Mike was defensive player of the year. I said, could it be that he actually plays good defense?
Right.
And so he's not fouling as much as you think he's fouling? Or you just want fouls on him because it's Michael Jordan
Right.
and you don't like him this night for whatever reason. Right. So those type of things. So you have to know that sometimes players who have a better skill set, and people think, well, you're giving him a pass because he's that. And I said, no, I'm not giving him that. But actually, when I judge the plays the same on every player, and he doesn't do what that player did, then why would I punish him?
Right.
That's not it. And I get at the end of the day, you're like, oh, it's LeBron, so you don't call fouls on him. Oh, it's Mike, so you don't call fouls on him. I said, no, that's true. Like one of the small things that happened one time. I remember I was at a game and I called a travel on Mike.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, nobody calls travels on Mike.
Right.
And this is back when we weren't calling a lot of travels.
Right.
Nowadays we've gotten better.
Okay.
And you can't, I'm telling you, you can't, I can't tell you how much flack I got. Look, when I had hair and was at the barbershop, and the guys come in, as soon as I hit the door, the guys are like, "You call the travel on Michael Jordan? There's no way. You know he doesn't travel. He's the best player in the world." And I was like, "Yeah, but he traveled." No, he didn't. Da, 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 da. And went back and forth. And I said, "See, I can't win with you guys."
Right.
Right? I said, "If I don't call the travel, you're on me. If I don't call the foul, you're on me. Now that I called the travel, now you're on me because I called the travel on him."
And see, I ain't even see the game, but I don't think Michael travel. I think he just
Yeah, I
called
know.
him. Yeah, Michael
Yeah.
don't travel.
They don't
No,
travel.
I don't think he travels on planes and stuff, but he don't travel on the court. He don't travel on the court. You know, you brought up a good point earlier. You brought something, and I want to go back to the life of a referee on a daily basis, because you say y'all live out y'all suitcase. So one question I want to know, I know a lot of people know this, want to know, do y'all have y'all schedule for the whole year, for the whole season?
We don't have it for the whole season.
So how y'all schedules?
So we get in the preseason, you'll get it for those 2 weeks, 3 weeks that we have. And during the year, you get it at a month at a time.
Okay.
At the max. And then when you get your schedule, what people don't also know is that once I get my schedule, and all they're doing is telling me what games I have.
Okay.
It's my responsibility to do all the travel arrangements.
They pay for it though, right?
Okay. They'll reimburse us for it, right? They're responsible for the travel, but I have to arrange all my flights in accordance with whatever the guidelines are that they need us to be there. And for instance, guideline is I'm here in Atlanta today, but I have a game in Miami on Tuesday, right? So that means that I need to be in Miami at some point on Monday night for that game on Tuesday.
Okay.
I can travel anytime I want, but I need to get there on Monday night. I can't go Tuesday morning.
Okay.
The only time you can go the same day of travel if I'm working in Miami on Tuesday, and then I have a game in Orlando, right? So that's the only time you can get there the same morning of the game. You have a back-to-back game.
Okay. Yeah. And so you responsible. Let me guess. So do your wife do all the setup for you? She run all that?
She does not.
She does. Okay. I thought you maybe you like, hey, I gotta be here.
Yeah.
So you do everything?
I do everything.
Oh, okay. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. That's what people said. That's the work behind the scenes, right? So that's a lot of work. And then when there's fight issues or challenges or whatever, you got to make sure you're on top of all those things too.
Okay.
Right. So
so is it like a CERN, like they say, okay, we go pay for your travel, but not business class. You got to go on regular. Do they give you stipulations?
Well, they did, but it's changed over the years. So a lot now. We do a lot more first class now.
Okay.
When I first started out, we did not. Right. So it's like there's 30 years of what I call maturation in that process, so to speak.
Okay.
When we first started out, it wasn't like that. It wasn't as good.
Okay.
Travel wise, but I can't complain now. Right. So they've made it a lot better, which is as much as we travel, when you're pretty much gone like 20 out of 30 days of the month during the season,
right?
That's 6 months out of the year that you're doing all that. It makes sense to try to make the travel as amenable as possible.
Okay.
For everyone, so you can be ready to work the game.
All right. And do refs ever like work games back to back the same refs, or y'all always different refs every different game?
Usually it's different. There's on occasions it can be that. It's rare. During the quote unquote COVID years when the league came back, we actually had a time where we were working the same city, which never happens now.
Okay.
Right? And before COVID, it didn't happen at all. So you would never work in the same city. But I think that's because of COVID. That's why they were doing it,
right?
To make it easier, and because we had a lot going on and we didn't know where we were going to be at. Luckily, we've got on the other side of that. We're in a much better place now.
Do you stay in nice hotels when you book yourself?
Yeah, they're pretty decent.
Okay. Yeah, so you ain't no Motel 6 where they keep the light on for you?
They're not. No, we're not there. We're not there. Y'all can call us snobs if you want, but we're not there.
Were y'all ever there?
We were never there. In the CBA, we were.
Okay.
The CBA is a little different, right?
Okay.
It's like it's like baseball. It's like, oh, you're in the minor leagues. It's like, look, be happy that you got a place to stay.
Right. Do y'all ever like meet up together before the game to have dinner or something like that, or y'all just meet up at the game? Y'all?
No, we'll do. Usually, on most times you don't have to. Like you get in the night before, usually get in touch with your crew, see what
Mhm.
they're in, what they're going to do. And most of us, for the most part, will get together, might have a dinner somewhere. There's a game on, we'll
Mhm.
go sit somewhere, watch the game, and talk about the game, critique our fellow officials like we always do. Um, and then the next day, basically what we'll do is we'll have a morning meeting
Mhm.
somewhere between 9 and 11. The crew gets together and we kind of talk over what we need, what we're the points of emphasis, what we need to focus on, what the matches might be that day. uh you know, Detroit playing Atlanta, that's like, okay, so what do we have, right? What's the basic expectation, right? And that's in the morning just to get prepared. And then you may go to lunch together, or we may separate and go to lunch, get our lunch, get off our feet for a little bit, get to the game about 90 minutes before tip off, and then we'll meet again in the locker room, right? So we'll talk and try to get mentally prepared for what's to come, and let's make sure that we take care of each other. Don't let any rules get set aside. You know, we may challenge ourselves on rules in the locker room, ask questions and things like that. That's all to get you mentally in position for what's about to come,
Okay.
right? And then during the game, we'll talk during the game, right? So there's times where you're during timeouts, we'll talk about, all right, here's what we got going on. We got one team that's up by 10, right? They got to run. So what's the expectation? It's like, well, they're down 10, so they have to do something different. All right. So let's try to get ready for what they may have to do. But whatever they're going to do, they got to do it legally. And if this team's going to keep their lead, they got to keep their lead legally, right?
Okay.
So you can't bend to what the score is, but you got to make sure everybody still is legal about what it is that they're going to do, right? That's that's where our main focus is, right? So a lot of times in games when you see in the NBA game, for the most part, it ebbs and flows. It's a game of runs all the time,
Right.
right? I said, no disrespect to college, but if I'm watching a college game in the first 5 minutes and the team's up 20, it's kind of like this team's going to win the game,
Right.
right? In the NBA, that's not necessarily the case, right? I said they might have went up 20. I said, yeah, but no lead is safe, right? So it's going to be a run, and then it's altogether different. And then in the last 2 minutes, all of a sudden you have a game there's only one possession, two possession. So you have to stay sharp from beginning to end.
Mm.
And for all of us, we're always trying to elevate ourselves so that from the beginning, I'm going to be better at the end than I was when I started this game.
Right.
Right. So this is always that's the goal, right? Not saying we always make it, but that's the goal, right? So that keeps you focus on what it is that you need to do through the entire game.
And I know over the course of the year, y'all had added more female referees.
Yeah.
What do you think they have brought to the change in the world? Because back in the day, I don't ever remember a female referee, but now you see multiple ones, and then I see like at least two. Sometimes I see two per game.
Yeah.
What you think about that dynamic?
Yeah. No, I think what has happened is the NBA has been innovative, and I remember when Dee Palmer and I mean Dee Cantner and Violet Palmer. Violet pretty much lasted about 18 years, right? So we always call her the queen, 'cause she was the one that really kind of pioneered everything for the females, but she was very, very good at what she did, right? So there was no mistake about her ability to be able to handle herself on this level,
Mhm.
right? And I've worked several games with her and saw her in action and interacting with players, right? Not only the calls that you have to make, but how you communicate, how you get respect from the players and coaches along the way. And
Mhm.
she did an outstanding job of that. Um, and again, I go back to I think that the NBA was innovative in starting and having that and allowing that segment of our population to be able to have the opportunity to show and prove themselves on our stage. And I think they've done a great job of
Right. Right. And now, let's say you actually coaches your sons.
that. I do.
AAU team, which is Shooter Paradise, correct?
Yeah.
And it's with
Yeah.
you, and who else?
Dexter Lyons right now is he and I got this age group, the 8th grade age group. So Shooter's Paradise is
How many teams I got?
well, we have 2,
Okay.
right? So Dennis Scott is actually over Shooter's Paradise. He's the one that started it. His
Okay.
son Trey, they were a few years. I want to say he started when Trey was in 10th, 9th or 10th grade,
Okay.
and they only had one then. And so we went and trained at a facility where they were at. And so we kind of, the wife and I approached them with possibility. And it's like, well, why don't you have a little younger team? Because we had the younger kids at the time. We had 5th and 6th graders.
Okay.
And they said, why don't you put a team together under under your name, or whatever. And so he said, well, I don't have a problem with that. I said, y'all can be under. I said, as long as y'all find a coach, we'll have at it. I said, okay. I said, we're going to do that. So for the last 3 years, we've pretty much run that under his name, and it's done pretty good. We're not the elite level AU team, but we're like mid level and whatever, and so we do good. We got some chips under our belt and got some heartache under our belt as well.
Of course. But you get in there. You get in
Getting
there.
there,
You get in there.
yeah.
And so, how do you balance both coaching the team? Because I know you the assistant coach. Sometimes you the head coach.
Yeah.
That's where I met you, and you got a referee. And I know last year when you was injured, so you was out for the
Yeah, I was
year.
off. Yeah, I had a tricep tendon tear, so I was out like the tail end of the season last year. So the bittersweet was it cut my season short, but it allowed me to be available for the AAU team. So I was more hands on with them, right? And so, and part of the beauty of being with them is these kids at this age. So like I said, they were 5th and 6th grade when we started. They're 8th, going into 9th now. I said, but I've been trying to teach them along the way sportsmanship, character, play competitive. You don't have to play mad.
Right.
Be respectful. And so not be those kids that I'm not telling you not to talk, but you got to be respectful about how you taunt. I said, I get it. Kids talk all the time. I
Right.
said, but we're not going to be those kids that are inciting riots and fights, whatever.
Right.
Right. But we're going to play hard and play competitive. And we're going to stand up to whoever we're playing with. And that's it. And listen, we have to accept our losses when they come and learn from them. And our wins, we're going to enjoy them, but we're not going to gloat over whoever it is we just beat. Right? I don't want y'all to be those kind of kids. So at least been trying to teach them how to navigate through that.
Right.
Especially during these years. I say these guys are preteens, teens now, right? So this is the age where, everything is super important to everybody.
Right.
That is it. So hopefully I've been successful in doing that.
And what has been because I know you be at the games and you see the referees that calling fouls, and I know sometimes after the game you'll kind of pull on. Sometimes you'll give them a little advice, and I know you have had some that they like. Okay, they listen to you, then get some that take it kind of personal. Like, okay, just because you ref at the NBA level, don't mean you need to come to him and tell me how to do my job or try to give me advice. How have that been taken?
Yeah, I never approach them, any of them. And then some of them I know. I never approach them as if I know I have all the answers.
Right.
I know. I said, look, I make mistakes on my job all the time.
Okay.
I said, none of us has ever worked a perfect game.
Right.
I said, but what I do try to share with them, I said, hey, let me try to share with you some tips that may help you going forward.
Right.
And just like anything else, I said, look, you can accept it or you can reject it. And when you're in a conversation with somebody, you can tell when somebody's listening to you and when they're not.
Yeah, right.
So when the guy's not listening, I was like, hey, I'll cut it short. I said, look, I'm not trying to beat you over the head with anything because I can tell I don't have your attention. I said, I'm not trying to tell you how to do things. I'm just suggesting to you some things that you might consider. But if they're not listening, I was like, I'll just cut it short. I said, I don't take it personal either. I said, because everybody has different levels that they really want to get to. Right. I my best friend in college or whatever. He already knew that I'm not going to put that much work in to get at a certain level. I don't want to do that.
Right.
So if I was talking to him, it's like, no, we're not going to study. We're not going to try to get better. I said, I'm good enough to do what I'm doing right here. That's fine with me. I said, then you just have to leave them. Sometimes that's where people are at. But I've had a lot of guys, and it's interesting you asked that, because some of the tournaments the guys find out, somebody tells them, it's like, yeah, he referees in the NBA. It's like, oh, really? Let me go introduce myself. Right. And so they want to talk. So they want to know, they want to hear certain things. And I engage them. It's like, yeah, I said, I can't tell you the path to actually get there. I said, but I can help you. I said, and I'm not that guy on the bench. Let me be clear to everybody out there. I'm not that guy on the bench that's hollering at the officials during the game.
You don't. I've seen you guys. I haven't seen
it. I do say things every now and again, but it's all in, hey, not sure about that. I think that kid just walked.
Right.
Said, but I get it. I said, we don't catch all the walks, right?
So did you tell me he Michael Jordan? He traveled? You don't say
that. Right. He's not Michael Jordan, right? You got to call that, right?
You got to call that. You got to call that. Yeah, because I don't see you at the games. I don't see you yelling or anything like that. And like I said, when I met your wife, how long y'all been married?
We've been married 18 years.
18 years. Did you meet her when you was reffing?
Yes, I was already reffing when we met.
Okay. No, I said, did you meet her at a game or something like that? Or?
No, actually, a mutual friend of ours who actually refs, James Capers, actually introduced us.
Okay.
In the summer, I was helping him with his camp in DC.
Okay.
And we have mutual friends, and she happened to be with her friend. That was a friend of James, and so we happened to meet in DC, and we haven't been separated since.
That's awesome. That's awesome. She's an awesome lady. I love talking to her.
You.
So it was a pleasure talking to both of y'all. So I have a question for you. Who's your Mount Rushmore of referees? And you can include yourself if you want to. Who are your Mount Rushmore?
I would like to, but I'm not. I'm not, because I think Hugh Evans goes right at the top. I like Hugh Evans, Hugh Hollins, Danny Crawford, and Joey Crawford.
Okay, that's your Mount Rushmore. Okay. Are any of them still reffing right now?
No, they aren't.
They all retired.
Danny would have been the last one to have retired. I can't remember what year he retired. Joey went out right before that. Fortunately, both the Hughes have passed away.
Okay.
Hugh Evans is in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, so y'all have a Hall of Fame?
Basketball Hall of Fame.
Okay. Yeah. So referees can make the Basketball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, recently been able to make the Hall of Fame. Darryl Garrison and Hugh Evans are both in there. Joey may be the next one to get in.
You go get in. You've been 33 years. Come on. If you've been reffing that long, because who's the longest right now that's still on league right now?
Well, I'm the most senior.
Well, then that I already said. So if NBA, y'all watching this, he definitely in the Hall of Fame. That'd be disrespectful if he's not in the Hall of Fame, because 33 years. So you the top dog right now.
I'm the top dog. Years of service. I'm the top dog.
Okay, man. What is one of the biggest things you're grateful about your position in the years you have put in?
Being able to mentor to the younger guys that are on the staff.
Okay.
Which I actually love doing. I think it's a privilege and an honor in a sense. I mean, I've always, even in my trying to learn and trying to progress up the ladder.
Okay.
So make no mistake about it. Listen, if you're not trying to be the best on the staff, if you're not trying to get into the finals, then you're doing yourself a disservice on the staff. Right? Now, it doesn't mean that you're actually going to make that every time, because it's not your decision at the end, right? It's the league office, who they want, how they do it. I have no idea how to process. I have no idea how to get to the final decision, right? But what you can do is always prepare yourself to be the best you can be, and make yourself available. And if it happens to work out, it'll work out. So I was fortunate enough to work 4 finals games. There was 4 different years that I was able to do that. I was in the playoffs. Can't remember how many years it's been. I started in 2006 in the playoffs, but I had worked the 3rd round for all those years. So I always say that's the final 4 of our league that I've been doing. And then I try to teach the younger guys, or at least share with the younger guys, sometimes mentor, sometimes teach how to be a professional in what you're doing.
Right.
And then, yeah, which is the hard part for us is how do you handle adversity, right?
Right.
Because usually at the end of every season, every referee feels some disappointment,
Right.
right? So you either didn't make the playoffs, so you're disappointed. If you're in the playoffs, didn't go to the round that you wanted to, so you feel disappointment. Even the finals guys, when that last game gets played, whenever it is,
hmm
there's some disappointment because you don't have one more game to do,
Right.
right? Move on to the next season, right? So there's a mild disappointment to some degree so there's always adversity that you have to be able to handle. And you got to know how to do that. And then it's like, all right, let me turn the page and let's move on and let's get ready for the next play, next chapter.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I got one question for you. One last question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
I talked about this. I want to talk to you about that call this past season.
I've
When
had
it
many
was
calls. Which
with
one
the
is
one
that?
with the Lakers versus the Sun when you gave LeBron James the timeout and Austin Reed lost the ball.
Mhm.
But before you answer that question, we're gonna say that for the next episode. So maybe you got to tune into the next episode if you want to see that conversation. Because definitely, I want to talk more with you about memories of Michael. Because you got to see him play Kobe, you got to see the great LeBron, you got to see all these great talents. So I want to talk to you about what you seen on the court and your thoughts and watching the evolution of basketball change. And I don't want to talk about the JJ Redick comment about plumbers and firemen playing back in the day, which I think is to me was totally disrespectful. So I definitely want to get into all that on this episode. But it was great to get to know more about you and where you came from, how you got started. And it's really enjoyable, man. It makes me really respect the craft and what you have did and how you have climbed to the top. And I'm glad to see that you 33 years and you at the top up there. And definitely can't wait to talk more with you in the next episode.
Can't wait either, man. Thanks. I
All right.
appreciate you having me.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Janet Jackson, live in Las Vegas. Janet Jackson, performing all her #1 hits. Live at Resorts World Theater, Las Vegas, opening December 30th through February 15th. Get tickets now at access.com. Janet Jackson, Las Vegas. Produced by AEG Presents. For more, visit janetjackson.com.
Yo, this is your boy DT. I hope you enjoyed the interview with my guy Tom Washington. I told you very informative. Got to know a little bit more about his journey in the world of NBA as a referee. That story about Kevin Willis and Isiah Thomas was wild. It was interesting. For his first official game, he had to deal with them two get into a fight. So it was very interesting. And I can't wait till you see the part 2 of the show. We're gonna get into the more dynamic, him reffing some of the greatest players of all time that we got to watch as kids, as teenagers, as adults, and just to hear his stories about who he think is considered his greatest player of time, who he enjoyed reffing. It was a great interview. So definitely tune in next week for part 2 of this series I did with Tom Washington. I thank the NBA, thank Tom Washington. Thank you all for sitting down, allow him to sit down with me. And of course, I always do my final statement of every show. And my final statement is Election Day is coming up. We got less than 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks before you get out there and cast your vote. It's very important. Get out there and cast your vote, no matter who you vote for. I hate to say that. No matter who you vote for, get out there. It's your right. You was given this right in this country to go vote. Get out there and cast your right to vote. Cast the vote for the right person, because one person leading us to a great future, the other one leading us back. And if you are an African-American male or woman, it's only one decision. And I don't care what anybody said. Barack was out there lecturing black men. He needs to lecture y'all, because a lot of y'all are not making any sense on the reason why you voted for Trump, a man who ripped our community apart. Not worth it. Get out there and vote. Make Kamala Harris a new president of the United States of America. So I really appreciate everybody tuning in to this episode of The Final Statement with DT. Make sure you tune in next week where I have part 2 of my interview with Tom Washington. Hope you enjoyed it. I see you next time. This is your boy DT.
It's DT.
You have just now listened to the most talked about podcast in the country. DT, unfiltered, uncensored. Thank you for tuning in and see you next time.
Damn. DT.